Coming up, an icon is immortalized in Carver Hawkeye Arena.
And later, the 110-pound weight class shines in action.
Hello everyone and welcome to DITV Sports in the Zone. I'm Colin Carithers.
And I'm Elise Gann. We are going to update you on everything happening in Hawkeye sports.
And Elise, there were some huge events from this past week. I mean, with all that going on, you have to be in the zone. Were you in the zone this week?
I was feeling really in the zone this week, Colin.
Well, if you were in the zone, then we got to let everyone else stay in the zone with what was happening with this league. So let's take a look at some of the action from this past week's contest. Starting off with Iowa women's basketball on Tuesday, taking on Northwestern. Kind of a back and forth contest, a little bit shaky, but Cynthia Falter scoring there. You can always rely on Lucy Olson as the team eventually pulled away 85-80 for the win.
And Iowa men's wrestling taking a trip out east to face #1 Penn State. It was a brutal trip as the Hawks took their first loss of the season. Second-ranked Kyle Parko, undefeated, took his first loss, as well as first-ranked Ja'Cory Teamer going down, as well as Iowa lost 30-8 against the Nittany Lions.
And just a huge upset, a huge loss there for Iowa. But on the other side, let's look at an upset for Iowa gymnastics as they face number 25 Nebraska. You see here a career high for Karina Munoz, a 9.925 on vault, and then you see Cassie Lee coming up doing incredible on the beam. But just a great job for them out there as Coach Llewellyn, new head coach for gymnastics, gets her first win in the Big Ten, and Iowa won 196-195.
And Iowa men's wrestling again, this time versus the Maryland Terrapins, ranked 25th in the country. They got back in the swing of things, winning 8 out of their 10 matches with a Stephen Buchanan pin. Iowa winning 34-9.
A lot more winning there on a Sunday. Let's continue that with Caitlin Clark's jersey retirement. Iowa women's basketball back at home yet again against the 4th-ranked USC Trojans. An incredible contest between two teams. You feature Lucy Olson, Juju Watkins, brings out all the stars. Of course, you see her jersey there now in the rafters of Carver Hawkeye Arena, and this was a huge contest. Iowa got up 18-4 after the first quarter, and then they were trailing by 1 going into halftime, but the distractions got away as Iowa would eventually win 76-69, warranting a court storm at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
The Hawkeye men's basketball team dropped a game on the road to the Ohio State Buckeyes last Monday, 82-65. The Hawkeyes trailed the Buckeyes by just 4 points at halftime, but the game slipped away as a 20-6 run by the Buckeyes would turn out to be too much for the Hawks to overcome. Drew Thelwell led the way with 20 points for Iowa, while Owen Freeman contributed 14 of his own as well.
Well, this women's dive team also took home a win over Rutgers, but they lost to Nebraska in a triangular at Piscataway, New Jersey. Olivia Swally secured individual win in the 400 individual medley. Olivia Swally and Leslie Wendell both broke personal records in the 100 butterfly.
In the Iowa women's basketball team's victory over Northwestern to start the week, they got a contribution from a returning star. DITV's Ryan Paris has a look at Hannah Stolke's impact in her return.
The return of Hannah Stolke provided a big boost to the lineup after she missed the last 2 games with a concussion.
I kind of joked to Hannah after the game. I said it's a little easier when you're not seeing 2 of them, right?
Stolke finished with 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists in what was her biggest scoring output of the season and highest since last year's 47-point game against Penn State. But above individual success, Stolke's chemistry with freshman Aaliyah Guyton was critical to the winning effort.
My teammates were getting me the ball all the time. Aaliyah, we have a connection on the court, and that's been really special to build and work on, and I guess it was just rolling for me.
After staying home during the team's West Coast trip, Stolke wanted to get back on the floor as soon as possible.
It was really weird watching them on the TV and yelling at the TV because I've never experienced that before, but I miss the girls a lot.
I mean, just let's keep the theme with some women's athletics. It's a really cool week for them as the #1 team finished off their regular season at the Grandview Open in Des Moines. And despite some of their top wrestlers sitting out, they had 14 semifinals and 5 individual champions. But one weight group stood out. DITV's Joel Keller has the story.
Every single day we go into practice just pushing each other to get better, and then we just love each other, and we're just a great family, and that's why I came to Iowa.
On these mats, the Hawkeyes 110-pound weight class has shown the powerhouse that Chung has built the Hawkeyes into, with all three placing in the top 3.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, so lucky to have such great lightweights and great humans at that You know, they're all such great teammates to each other. You know, it's always hard to watch those matchups because it's like, you know, we love each and every one of them.
The Bayless took down Valerie Solorio in the finals to take home the crown and the bragging rights.
I think I try and keep it the same, just as if I'm wrestling anybody else. Control what I can control.
Oh man, she's stealth, man. She's strong and just like stalks her opponents and takes it one takedown at a time.
The Hawkeyes look to use this momentum to power themselves into the postseason where they look to defend their national title. From the Charles S. Johnson Wellness Center in Des Moines, Iowa, I'm Joel Keller, DITV Sports.
After the Hawkeyes win over USC, the team immortalized an icon inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. DITV's Brady Barron witnessed history.
Just a couple of short years ago, I came into the arena. You were in here getting your shots up before practice, like you always are. And you took and paused for a second, and you looked up there, and you looked at those jerseys. I went over to you, put my arm around your shoulder, and said, Caitlin, someday your name's going to be up there. Your jersey's going to be up there.
An icon was immortalized here in Carver Hawkeye Arena. Caitlin Clark helped bring the Hawkeyes to 2 back-to-back national championship appearances and 3 straight Big Ten championships, along with numerous other personal accolades. And now, joining the 22 on the court is the 22 in the rafters.
Plenty of stars shined in Iowa City, with former teammates Gabby Marshall, Kate Martin, and Monica Cesano joining former coach Lisa Bluter on the sidelines. And right next to Bluter was comedian and TV host David Letterman. And along with raising Clark's jersey, she was presented with a commemorative ball featuring all of her accomplishments.
Caitlin's 101. I just think it is a moment in time for everyone when a GOAT like Caitlin gets to have the moment.
And with a celebration like this, it's only natural that Caitlin Clark took some time to reflect on her tenure in Iowa City.
The beginning, when I didn't play in front of anybody, to the very end where we went to our second Final Four, second national championship game, and just how much things changed. The thing we're probably the most proud of, looking at like myself and Kate and Gabby, is just the culture that we had here. It's not so much the winning. The winning came because of the great culture that we had.
But her influence isn't just felt at the University of Iowa. Clark has made an impact for all of women's athletics.
Those of us that have been in women's sports for so long, right? We've been there when people weren't. All the people in women's basketball now, they really appreciate what Caitlin and company did, and hopefully what we did here at the University of Iowa.
Now Clark will start preparing for her WNBA season with the Indiana Fever, where they'll have a preseason game right here in Carver Hawkeye Arena, where Caitlin Clark will look to give a show to the fans like she did all those years before. From Carver Hawkeye Arena, Brady Barron, DITV Sports.
And now that we've recapped the week of Iowa sports, let's take a look at where the Hawkeyes stand in the Big Ten and nationally. And to break it down for us, let's take a look at DITV's Joel Keller with our update.
Thanks, guys. There's a lot of things to look at with where the Hawkeyes sit in the standings so far this year. And we're going to start with the basketball teams. But first, a quick reminder that the new look Big Ten, only the top 15 teams will make the Big Ten tournament this year, unlike past years where every team had the opportunity in March. First, let's look at the Iowa women's basketball team. After that crazy win against USC, they're now ranked 12th in the conference. They're currently in the Big Ten tournament, and now they have a little bit of cushion on the teams below them. But they don't have a whole lot of room for error. However, the win against the Trojans could pay dividends come Selection Sunday. Moving over to the men's team, they also currently sit in 12th in the Big Ten with a 13-9 record. They'd be in if the tournament started tomorrow, but they're only 2 games away from falling to 15. And after the men's wrestling teams lost to Penn State, they fell to 2-1 in the conference, but that big bounce-back win against Maryland has them at 3-1 in Big Ten play and in 4th place. They still have plenty of wrestlers ranked, with Stephen Buchanan and Ja'Cory Turner sitting at the top of their weight class as we head towards the Big Ten tournament. Staying on the mat, the women's team is number 1 in the nation, with athletes like Macy Kilty, Kennedy Blades, Kylie Welker, JC Fuller, all leading their weight classes. The Big Ten doesn't have a conference tournament for women's wrestling, so those are going to be some names to keep in mind as we head towards the NCWWC Regionals in Indianola, Iowa. The Big Ten has yet to see a conference tennis match so far this year, but they are 2-1 to start the season. That'll do it for all of Iowa's team sports in season. So I'll send it back to you two.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. It's a good look to see. I mean, at this point in the season, they know where the Hawkeye sports have been and where they're going to look at. I mean, but they also have had some really cool plays, and they've been impressing some audiences this past week, Elise.
I know, Colin. There were a lot of cool plays, so let's look at some of the best of this week's Within the Zone's top 5 plays. Starting off number 5 in the Grandview Open, Iowa women's wrestler Sterling Diaz in the 103 weight class with a 3-point takedown, finishing second overall.
And number 4, back to some women's basketball from earlier today. Lucy Olsen cutting through, getting to the bucket as she led her team with the and one.
The men's basketball team has its hands full this week. They start things off on Tuesday with a game against 10th-ranked Purdue inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. Purdue is coming off a win over Indiana, and they'll follow that up with a home game against 17th-ranked rival Wisconsin Badgers on Saturday. The Badgers beat Iowa 116-85 last time these two teams met in early January.
And one of the most anticipated matchups, regardless of the sport, is set to take place this Wednesday. The women's tennis team will host the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa's coming off their first loss of the year at Kansas, while the Cyclones 3-4 lost to another Big Ten opponent in Minnesota.
And speaking of Minnesota, the women's basketball team is taking a trip up north to Minnesota to take on the Golden Gophers this Thursday. After today's win, the Hawkeyes are now 15-7 on the year. Minnesota lost to the other top-ranked LA team, UCLA, before they will host the Hawkeyes later this week.
And the men's wrestling team will host Nebraska Cornhuskers inside Carver Hawkeye Arena on Friday. Iowa's looking to bounce back after the loss to Penn State, which we heard about earlier, while Nebraska is coming off 3 straight Big Ten victories that most notably took down 18th-ranked Michigan Wolverines.
Well, let's take a break and get back into our top 5 plays now with number 3. Rose Cassiope in the 160 weight class, rolling around and around for the 2-point reversal, finishing 4th in her weight class overall.
And for the number 2 play, Lucy Olsen. We saw her earlier. She's going to shine again. Stealing over from the right wing inside the paint, step through, working her way to the bucket for another 2 points.
Both Hawkeye track and field teams will hit the road this week. Some athletes from each team will head to New Mexico for the New Mexico Collegiate Classic, while others will stay in the state for the Iowa State Classic this Friday and Saturday. The upcoming schedule for Hawkeye track and field is heating up as the travel schedule is getting heavier.
Well, their travel schedule is heating up, which it certainly is. The gymnastics team will take a break with their travel and stay home against Rutgers next Sunday. Rutgers is coming off a quad where they went 2-1, beating UTICA and FIS, but losing the Big Ten foe, Maryland, by .2.
The rowing team will get back in their boats after almost 3 months. They will head to Orlando, Florida to compete against Central Florida over the weekend before the team will dry off until late March.
And finally, the Iowa softball team is set to open their season this week. They'll take a trip to Florida for the NFCA Leadoff Classic, where they'll play Kennesaw State and Tennessee on Friday, and Marshall, Texas Tech, and Missouri on Saturday.
And now at you, Colin, and what they have all been waiting for in the Zone's top play of the week. In the women's basketball team's win over Northwestern, Lucy Olsen with a beautiful steal, taking it all the way to the hoop. We'll look at it again. Super clean, super smooth, jumping right up in the air, taking it all the way down, doing what she does best, Lucy Olsen.
Really cool note there, Elise. I mean, with how much stuff happened earlier today, I mean, we all might still be riding off a high after that upset win over UCLA from the women's team, but you got to remember that game earlier in the week was such a cool play there. Just a good way to kind of cap off Iowa weekend sports.
Yeah, Colin, closing out the weekend with a big win, always a great way to close things out.
Well, we'll send it out with that there, Elise. We can find us more with all of our updates in Hawkeye Sports on the DailyIowan.com and YouTube page. And next week for our next episode of In the Zone, which will be an abnormal episode. It will be on Monday night because of the Super Bowl. Don't want to interfere with one of the biggest nights in all of sports, but we'll be back again next Monday.
For DITV Sports, I'm Elise Gann.
And I'm Colin Crithers. Thank you for tuning in to In the Zone.